Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship, the horizon's edge. He looked out at the dark space around them. Stars twinkled in the distance like tiny diamonds. His crew had been exploring this quiet part of the galaxy for 3 months. Now, they were looking for new planets that humans could live on. "Captain," called out Amy Rodriguez from her station. She was the ship's engineer and communication expert. "I'm picking up something strange on the long-range sensors." Jake walked over to her workstation. The screen showed a large shape moving slowly through space. It was much bigger than their own ship. "What do you think it is?" he asked. Amy pressed some buttons and the image became clearer. "It looks like a ship, but it's huge, much bigger than anything we've ever built. And Captain, it's sending out a distress signal." Dr. Lisa Carter looked up from her research station. She was the ship's expert on alien life and cultures. "Can you tell what kind of signal it is?" "It's not in any language we know," Amy said. "But the pattern is clear. They need help." Commander Paul Bennett walked onto the bridge. He was Jake's second in command and handled all military matters. "What's the situation?" he asked. Jake pointed to the screen. "Unknown alien ship in distress. We're the only ones close enough to help." Paul frowned. "Sir, we should be careful. We don't know who they are or what they want." Jake nodded. He understood Paul's concern. In space, being too trusting could get you killed. But he also knew that leaving people to die was wrong. "Amy, can you get us closer? I want to see what we're dealing with." "Yes, sir." Amy's fingers moved quickly over her controls. The horizon's edge changed direction and moved toward the strange ship dot as they got closer. The alien vessel became more clear on their screens. It was massive, easily 10 times bigger than their ship. The hull was dark gray, with strange markings painted on. Besides, parts of it looked damaged, with holes and scorch marks visible. "My God," whispered Dr. Carter. "It's a generation ship. A whole city flying through space." Jake had heard of generation ships before. They were huge vessels that could carry thousands of people on journeys that lasted many years. Usually, they were used when a species had to leave their home planet. "Can you scan for life signs?" Jake asked. Amy worked at her station for several minutes. When she looked up, her face was pale. "Captain, there are about 15,000 life forms on that ship, but many of the readings are weak. I think they're dying." "Dying from what?" Paul asked. Dr. Carter was studying her own readings. "From everything, it looks like. Their air system is failing. They don't have enough food. And I'm seeing signs of disease spreading through the ship." Jake felt his heart sink. 15,000 people were dying, and his small ship was the only help available. "Amy, try to contact them. Let them know we want to help." Amy sent out signals in dozens of different languages. After 20 minutes, she finally got an answer. The voice that came through the speakers was deep and rough, but they could understand it. "Unknown vessel, this is Vextai, leader of the Kethmari refugees. Who are you and what do you want?" Jake stepped forward. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the human ship Horizon's Edge. We received your distress signal. We want to help." There was a long silence. Then Vextai spoke again. "Humans? We have heard stories about your species. You are new to the galaxy." "Yes, we are. But that doesn't matter right now. Your people are in trouble, and we have supplies." "That might help." Another pause. "Captain Morrison, do you know who we are? Do you know why we drift in the void between stars?" Jake looked at his crew. None of them had heard of the Kethmari before. "No, we don't. But we know you need help, and we're willing to give it." "We are the Kethmari," Vextai said, his voice heavy with sadness. 50 years ago, we were cast out from our homeworld. The Galactic Council declared us too dangerous to live among civilized species. Every world we have approached has turned us away. Every species we have asked for help has refused us. Dr. Carter stepped closer to the communication station. What did you do to make them fear you so much? That is a long story, human doctor, one filled with pain and mistakes. But know this, we have been wandering in space for 50 years. Our ship is dying, our people are dying, and we have nowhere to go. Jake felt anger rise in his chest. How could the galaxy just abandon 15,000 people to die in space? Vexed High, we don't care what you did 50 years ago. We care about what's happening right now. Will you let us help you? The silence stretched on for almost 5 minutes. Finally, Vexed High spoke again. Captain Morrison, why would you risk your ship and crew for strangers? For people that the rest of the galaxy has rejected? Jake thought about the question. It was a good one. Why was he willing to help? Because it's the right thing to do, he said simply. Because leaving people to die when you can save them is wrong. And because everyone deserves a second chance. Paul touched Jake's arm. Captain, we should think about this. If the Galactic Council rejected them, there might be good reasons. Jake looked at his friend. Paul, look at those readings. Look at the children on that ship. Are we really going to let them die because of something that happened 50 years ago? Dr. Carter nodded. The captain is right. Whatever they did in the past, they're suffering now. We have to help. Amy looked up from her station. Captain, I'm reading massive system failures all through their ship. If we're going to help, it has to be soon. They don't have much time left. Jake made his decision. Vexed High, we're coming alongside your ship. We'll do everything we can to help your people. Captain Morrison, Vexed High said, and for the first time, his voice had hope in it. You may be the first people in 50 years to show us kindness. We will not forget this. As the horizon's edge moved closer to the huge Kethmari ship, Jake wondered what they were getting themselves into. But looking at the faces of his crew, he knew they had made the right choice. Sometimes doing the right thing was more important than being safe. The two ships slowly came together in the darkness of space, beginning a friendship that would change everything. The airlock between the two ships opened with a soft hiss. Jake Morrison stepped through first, followed by Dr. Lisa Carter and Amy Rodriguez. The air on the Kethmari ship felt thick and warm, with a strange smell that reminded Jake of wet earth. After Rain Dot, the creature waiting for them was unlike anything they had ever seen. Vexed Eye stood nearly 8 feet tall, with dark blue skin that seemed to shimmer in the light. His arms were long and powerful, and his face had sharp features with large, intelligent eyes. Despite his fearsome appearance, he moved slowly and carefully, as if he didn't want to frighten them. Welcome aboard the Wandering Hope, Vexed Eye said in his deep voice. I am sorry you must see us in such poor condition. Jake looked around. The corridor they stood in was clearly once beautiful, with carved walls and painted designs. But now it was dirty and damaged. Water dripped from broken pipes, and the lights flickered weakly. Thank you for letting us come aboard, Jake said. We brought medical supplies and food. Where do you need help the most? Vexed Eye's large eyes seemed to study Jake carefully. You truly mean to help us, don't you? This is not some trick or test. Dr. Carter stepped forward. We're here because we want to help. That's what humans do. A smaller figure appeared from behind Vexed Eye. She was clearly female, with the same blue skin, but a more delicate build. Her eyes were bright with curiosity. I am Zaranel, she said. I study science and languages. I have been trying to learn about your species since we first spoke. Amy smiled at her. I'm Amy. I work with communications and computers. Maybe we can help each other understand our different technologies. Zaranel's face lit up with excitement. Yes, I have so many questions about how your ship works. And perhaps I can show you some of our systems that still function. Vextai watched this exchange with surprise. You are not afraid of us? Should we be? Jake asked. The rest of the galaxy thinks so, Vextai said sadly. They call us the violent ones, the dangerous ones. They say we cannot be trusted. Doctor. Carter pulled out a small medical scanner. May I? She asked, pointing to the device. Vextai nodded, and she ran the scanner over him. Fascinating, she said, looking at the readings. Your species has some very interesting biological traits. What do you mean? Amy asked. Well, look at this. Dr. Carter showed them the scanner. Kethmari have very high levels of certain chemicals in their blood. In humans, these chemicals are only produced during intense physical activity or competition. But in the Kethmari, these levels are normal all the time. Zaranel nodded eagerly. Yes, we are a very physical people. We love to compete, to test ourselves against each other. It is how we bond and make friends. But other species see this as violence, Vextai explained. They do not understand that our competitions are not meant to harm. They are meant to bring us together. Jake was beginning to understand. So when you competed with other species, they thought you were trying to hurt them? Yes, Vextai said. We tried to explain, but they would not listen. They decided we were too dangerous to live with civilized people. Amy and Zaranel had wandered off to look at a computer terminal. Amy was pointing at different parts, while Zaranel explained how they worked. Despite the language barrier, they seemed to understand each other perfectly. Can you show us the worst damage? Dr. Carter asked. We need to know where to start. Helping. Vextai led them through the ship. Jake was amazed by what he saw. Even in its broken state, the Wandering Hope was incredible. There were vast gardens where food was grown, schools where children learned, and workshops where people created beautiful art. But everything was failing, Dot, in the medical bay. They found hundreds of sick Kethmari lying on beds. Many were very thin, and some were clearly dying. Dr. Carter immediately went to work, using her medical knowledge to help where she could. How many of you are there? Jake asked. When we left our homeworld, we were 25,000, Vextai said. Now, we are only 15,000. We have lost 10,000 of our people to hunger, disease, and despair. Jake felt anger building inside him. How could the galaxy let this happen? Tell me about your homeworld. What really happened 50 years ago? Vextai was quiet for a long moment. Then he began to speak. Our world was ruled by a corrupt government. They made deals with other species, selling our people as workers and test subjects. When we discovered what they were doing, we tried to stop them. You had a revolution? We tried to save our children, Vextai said, his voice filled with pain. The government was taking young Kethmari and selling them to scientists on other worlds. They were being used for medical experiments. We could not let this continue. Dr. Carter looked up from her work. You were trying to protect your children? Yes. But when we fought back, the government called us terrorists. They asked the Galactic Council for help. The Council decided it was easier to exile us than to investigate the truth. Jake shook his head. So you've been wandering space for 50 years, because you tried to save your own children. The galaxy does not care about the truth, Vextai said bitterly. They only care about keeping peace. It was easier to cast us out than to admit that some of their member species were buying and selling people. Amy came running back to them, her face excited. Captain, you need to see this. Zaranel has been showing me their computer systems. They have records of everything that happened 50 years ago. Video files, communication logs, everything. What do the records show? Jake asked. Zaranel spoke up, her voice shaking with Emotion. They show the truth. That our people were being kidnapped and sold. That we only fought to save our families. That the government lied about everything. Dr. Carter had finished her immediate work with the sick. Captain, I've done what I can for now, but these people need proper medical care. And they need food, clean water, and repairs to their life support systems. Jake nodded. Amy, contact the ship. Tell them to bring over all the medical supplies we have, and all the food we can spare. Yes, sir. Vextai, we're going to help you fix your ship. But I need to ask you something. Are you willing to share those records with the rest of the galaxy? To show them what really happened? Vextai looked surprised. You believe us? I believe what I see, Jake said. I see a people who have been suffering for 50 years because they tried to do the right thing. I see children who are dying because the galaxy turned its back on them. And I see a leader who cares more about his people than his own pride. Tears formed in Vextai's large eyes. Captain Morrison, no one has spoken to us with such kindness in 50 years. We had begun to think that we were truly monsters. You're not monsters, Dr. Carter said firmly. You're refugees, and everyone deserves help. Over the next several hours, the crew of the Horizon's Edge worked alongside the Kethmari. They shared food, medicine, and knowledge. Amy and Zaranel worked together to improve the communication systems. Dr. Carter taught Kethmari doctors about human medical techniques. Jake and Vextai planned repairs to the ship's most critical systems. As they worked, Jake learned more about Kethmari culture. They were a people who valued family above everything else. They were artists, scientists, and explorers. They had a deep respect for nature and a strong sense of justice. They were nothing like the violent monsters the galaxy believed them to be. But as the day went on, Jake began to worry. He knew that helping the Kethmari might cause problems with the Galactic Council. Humans were still new to galactic politics, and making enemies could be dangerous. His worries came true when Amy received a message from Earth Command. Captain, she said, her voice concerned. Earth Command is ordering us to stop helping the Kethmari immediately. The Galactic Council has contacted them. They're threatening to kick humanity out of galactic society if we continue to help. Jake looked around at the Kethmari working alongside his crew. He saw Zaranel teaching Amy about alien technology. He saw Dr. Carter saving lives in the medical bay. He saw children who were finally getting enough to eat. Amy, he said quietly, send a message back to Earth Command. Tell them we need more. Time to complete our mission. But, sir, they ordered us to stop. Jake looked at Vextai, who was watching the exchange with understanding in his eyes. Amy, some orders are wrong, and some things are more important than following orders. Vextai placed a large, gentle hand on Jake's shoulder. Captain, we do not want to cause trouble for your people. If you must leave, we understand. Jake shook his head. We're not leaving. Not while you still need help. As if summoned by his words, new signals appeared on their sensors. A large fleet was approaching fast. The Galactic Council had come to enforce their will. The real test was about to begin. Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship, watching the approaching fleet on his main screen. 12 large warships were moving toward them, their weapons clearly visible. At the front was a massive vessel that dwarfed even the Kethmari. Generation ship. Captain, Amy Rodriguez called out from her station. The lead ship is hailing us. They say they're from the Galactic Council. Put them through, Jake said. The screen flickered and showed an alien face. The creature had pale green skin, 4 eyes, and a mouth full of sharp teeth. When it spoke, its voice was cold and commanding. I am Ambassador Thelvos of the Galactic Council. You will identify yourself immediately. I'm Captain Jake Morrison of the human exploration vessel Horizon's Edge. Captain Morrison, You are in violation of Galactic Council Resolution 2847. You are forbidden from having any contact with the Kethmari. You will withdraw your ship immediately." Jake felt his jaw tighten. "Ambassador, these people are dying. We're providing humanitarian aid. The Kethmari are exiled criminals," Felvos said sharply. "They are dangerous and cannot be trusted. Your species is new to galactic society. Do not make the mistake of helping them." Commander Paul Bennett stepped up beside Jake. "Sir, maybe we should listen to them. They know more about galactic politics than we do." Jake looked at his friend. Paul was a good man, but he always thought about safety first. "Paul, have you seen those children on the Kethmari ship? Are we really going to let them die?" Dr. Lisa Carter came onto the bridge, her medical coat stained with her work. "Captain, I've been studying the Kethmari medical records. The things I've found are disturbing." "What do you mean?" Jake asked. "Their children weren't just being sold as workers," she said quietly. "They were being used for medical experiments. Horrible experiments. The Kethmari records show that thousands of their young people were taken and never returned." Ambassador Felvos was still on the screen. "Captain Morrison, whatever lies the Kethmari have told you, do not believe them. They are masters of deception. They started a war on their homeworld that killed millions. That's not true." The voice came from behind them. Vextai had come onto the bridge, along with Zaranel and several other Kethmari. "We did not start a war. We tried to save our children." Felvos's face changed when he saw the Kethmari. His 4 eyes blazed with anger. "How dare you bring these creatures onto your ship? They are contaminating everything they touch." Jake stepped in front of Vextai. "Ambassador, I want to hear both sides of this story. Vextai, tell me exactly what happened 50 years ago." Vextai's large eyes were filled with old pain. "Our government was corrupt. They made secret deals with other species. Companies from across the galaxy would pay them to take our young people for experiments." "What kind of experiments?" Dr. Carter asked. Zaranel spoke up, her voice shaking. "They tested new medicines on us. They studied our biology. They wanted to know why we were so strong and healed so fast. Many of our people died in these tests." "Lies," Felvos shouted from the screen. "The Kethmari are violent by nature. They cannot live peacefully with civilized species." Vextai looked directly at the ambassador. "Felvos, you know the truth. Your own species bought 1,200 of our children. What happened to them?" The ambassador's face went very still. "I do not know what you are talking about." "Show him," Vextai said to Zaranel. The young Kethmari scientist worked quickly at one of the bridge consoles. Soon, documents appeared on the main screen. They were written in several alien languages, but Amy's computers translated them into English. Jake read in horror. The documents were purchase orders, bills of sale, medical test reports. They showed exactly what Vextai had said, young Kethmari being bought and sold like property. "My God," Paul whispered, "they really were selling their own people." "Doctor," Carter pointed to one of the documents. "Look at this. It's a medical report from 53 years ago. It shows experiments being done on Kethmari children. The test subjects are identified only by numbers, not names." "These documents are fake," Felvos said, but his voice didn't sound sure anymore. "No, they are not," Vextai said sadly. "We saved what we could when we escaped. We hoped that someday someone would listen to the truth." Jake studied the documents more carefully. "Vextai, this shows that your government was working with at least 6 different species, including some that sit on the Galactic Council. Yes, when we discovered what was happening, we tried to stop it. We rescued as many children as we could, but the government called us rebels and terrorists. So you fought back, Jake said. We had no choice. Our children were disappearing. Our people were being sold like animals. We tried to work within the system first, but no one would listen. Zaranel pulled up more files. Here are the records of our peaceful protests. We tried for 3 years to get help through legal means. The government ignored us. The Galactic Council ignored us. And when you finally fought back, they used it as an excuse to exile you, Dr. Carter said, understanding. The government we were fighting asked the Galactic Council for help. Vextai explained. They said we were dangerous rebels who wanted to destroy civilization. The Council decided it was easier to exile us than to investigate the truth. Jake looked at Ambassador Felvos on the screen. You knew about this, didn't you? The Council knew that the Kethmari government was selling their own people. The internal affairs of member species are not our concern, Felvos said stiffly. The Galactic Council maintains peace by not interfering in local politics. Even when children are being sold for medical experiments? Dr. Carter demanded. Captain Morrison, Felvos said, ignoring her question. You have 48 hours to withdraw from the Kethmari ship. If you do not comply, we will consider your actions an act of aggression against the Galactic Council. And what happens then? Jake asked. Your species will be expelled from galactic society. You will lose all trade agreements, all diplomatic relations, and all protection under galactic law. Is helping these criminals worth destroying your people's future? The communication ended, leaving the bridge in silence. Paul put his hand on Jake's shoulder. Captain, maybe we should think about this. Helping the Kethmari is the right thing to do, but we can't destroy humanity's place in the galaxy. Jake looked around at the faces on his bridge. His own crew looked worried. The Kethmari looked defeated, as if they had heard this conversation many times before. Vextai, Jake said quietly, in 50 years of wandering, has anyone ever helped? You? A few individuals gave us supplies or water, Vextai said. But no government, no species has ever offered real help. Most run away when they learn who we are. Amy looked up from her station. Captain, I'm getting messages from Earth. The government is split. Some officials want us to obey the Council. Others think we should help the Kethmari. What about the people of Earth? Jake asked. What do they think? The story is spreading through the news networks. Most people support helping the Kethmari. They're calling it the right thing to do. Dr. Carter was still studying the Kethmari documents. Captain, these records prove that the Galactic Council knew about the experiments. Some Council species were directly involved. They exiled the Kethmari to hide their own crimes. Jake made his decision. Amy, send a message to Earth Command. Tell them we're staying. Tell them that some things are more important than politics. Sir, are you sure? Paul asked. Jake looked at Vextai and Zaranel, two people who had spent 50 years being hated for trying to save their children. Paul, if we abandon them now, what does that say about humanity? What kind of people does that make us? Vextai stepped forward. Captain Morrison, we do not want your people to suffer because of us. We have learned to live with being outcasts. That's exactly why we can't abandon you, Jake said. Because you've given up hope. Because you think you deserve this. But you don't. No one deserves to be punished for trying to save their children. Amy looked up from her station again. Captain, I'm reading more ships approaching. These ones are human. Jake looked at the screen. 5 Earth ships were moving toward them, led by a heavy cruiser he recognized. That's the Washington, Paul said with surprise. Admiral Sandra Price's flagship. The communication system activated. A stern-faced woman in an Earth military uniform appeared on the screen. Captain Morrison, this is Admiral Price. I'm here with orders from Earth Command. Jake straightened. Yes, Admiral. Your orders are to continue providing humanitarian aid to the Kethmari refugees. Earth has reviewed the evidence you transmitted. We stand with you, Captain. Jake felt a wave of relief wash over him. Behind him, he heard Vextai make a sound like a sob. Admiral, Jake said, the Galactic Council has given us 48 hours to withdraw. They're threatening to expel humanity from galactic society. Admiral Price smiled grimly. Let them try. Captain, Earth has decided that some things are more important than galactic politics. We'll stand with you and the Kethmari. As the human fleet took position alongside the horizon's edge and the Wandering Hope, Jake felt proud of his species. They had chosen to do what was right, even when it was dangerous. But he also knew that the real test was still coming. In 48 hours, they would learn if the Galactic Council was willing to go to war over their secrets. The tension in space was thick enough to cut. Two fleets faced each other across the darkness. The Galactic Council's 12 powerful warships on one side, and the small human fleet protecting the Kethmari generation ship on the other. Between them floated 48 hours of ultimatum time that was quickly running out. Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the horizon's edge, watching the enemy ships on his screens. Admiral Sandra Price had moved her flagship, the Washington, between the Council fleet and the Kethmari ship. The other human vessels spread out in a protective formation. Captain, Amy Rodriguez called out from her communication station. I'm receiving signals from all over the galaxy. Word about the Kethmari situation is spreading fast. What kind of signals? Jake asked. News reports, government communications, even messages from private citizens. The documents we released are being studied by every major species in the galaxy. Dr. Lisa Carter looked up from her medical station. The evidence is solid, Captain. No one can deny what those documents show. The Galactic Council knew about the child trafficking and did nothing to stop it. Commander Paul Bennett walked onto the bridge carrying a datapad. Captain, I've been analyzing the Council fleet. They have more ships and bigger weapons, but our technology is newer. If it comes to a fight, we might have a chance. Jake hoped it wouldn't come to fighting. War would hurt everyone, especially the Kethmari refugees who had already suffered so much. Any word from the Council ships? Ambassador Thelvos has been trying to contact species leaders across the galaxy, Amy reported. But from what I can tell, not many are listening to him anymore. Vextai entered the bridge with Zaranel beside him. The Kethmari leader looked tired but determined. Captain Morrison, our engineers have been working with your people to repair our ship's defenses. If there is a battle, we will not hide behind you. Vextai, your people have been through enough. Let us handle this. The tall alien shook his head. For 50 years, we have run from fights. Today, we stand with our friends. Zaranel stepped forward, her eyes bright with excitement. Captain, I have been working with Amy on something special. We have found a way to broadcast the truth to every ship in the galaxy at the same time. What do you mean? Jake asked. Amy smiled. We've hacked into the Galactic Communication Network. We can send the evidence about the child trafficking to every government, every news organization, every private citizen who has access to galactic communications. The Council won't be able to stop the information or control how people react. To it, Dr. Carter added. Jake considered this. It was a bold plan, but it might be their only chance to avoid a war. How long do we have before the Council's deadline? Paul checked his watch. 6 hours, sir. Then let's do it. Amy, Zaranel, send out everything we have. Every document, every piece of evidence, every proof of what really happened to the Kethmari. The next hour was busy with preparation. Amy and Zaranel worked together to prepare the data transmission. Dr. Carter organized the medical evidence. Paul made sure their defenses were ready in case the Council decided to attack any way. As they worked, more ships began arriving in the area. But these weren't Council warships. They were vessels from independent species, news organizations, and even some Council member species who wanted to see what was happening. "Captain," Amy said, "we have over 30 ships now watching this situation. The whole galaxy is paying attention." Jake nodded. That was exactly what they wanted. The Council couldn't hide their actions with so many witnesses present. "Are we ready to broadcast?" he asked. "Ready, sir," Amy confirmed. "Do it." The transmission went out across the galaxy in seconds. Every major world, every government, every news organization received the complete evidence of what had happened. To the Kethmari, the documents, the medical records, the proof of child trafficking, all of it became public knowledge. The reaction was immediate and explosive. Amy's communication board lit up with incoming messages. "Captain, I'm receiving responses from dozens of species. The Centauri Union is demanding an emergency council meeting. The Vegan Republic is calling for investigations. Even some council member species are expressing shock and outrage." On the main screen, they could see the council fleet beginning to spread out, preparing for possible attack. But Jake also noticed something else. Several of the council ships were no longer in formation. They were moving away from the main fleet. "Admiral Price is hailing us," Amy reported. The Admiral's face appeared on the screen. "Captain Morrison. Excellent work. The political situation is changing rapidly. 3 council member species have already announced they're withdrawing from the council, pending a full investigation." "What about Ambassador Thelvos?" Jake asked. "He's in a difficult position. The evidence shows his own species was heavily involved in the trafficking. His government is facing massive protests at home." As if summoned by their conversation, communication came in from the council flagship. Ambassador Thelvos appeared on the screen, but he looked very different from before. His usually confident demeanor was gone, replaced by desperation. "Captain Morrison, you have made a grave mistake. You have destabilized the entire galactic order." "We've told the truth," Jake replied simply. "If that destabilizes your order, maybe it needed to be destabilized. You don't understand the consequences of your actions. The Galactic Council has maintained peace for over 1,000 years. Without us, there will be chaos." Dr. Carter stepped forward. "Ambassador, how can you call it peace when children were being sold into slavery? How can you call it order when an entire species was exiled for trying to protect their families?" Thelvos' 4 eyes blazed with anger. The Kethmari were dangerous. They had to be contained. Dangerous to whom? Vextai asked, stepping into view. Dangerous to the corrupt officials who are selling our children? Dangerous to the species who are buying them? "You see?" Thelvos pointed at Vextai. "Even now, they show their violent nature. They cannot be trusted." Jake looked at Vextai, who was standing calmly despite the insults. "Ambassador, I've spent days with the Kethmari. I've seen how they treat their children, how they care for their sick, how they work together to survive. The only violence I've seen from them is their willingness to fight to protect their families. That is exactly what makes them dangerous." Thelvos shouted. "They put family above law, emotion above order. They cannot be controlled." Zarinel stepped forward, her voice calm but strong. "Ambassador Thelvos, we have never asked to be controlled. We have only asked to be left in peace to raise our children safely." Amy's board was still flashing with incoming messages. "Captain, the responses to our broadcast are getting stronger. The Andromedan Alliance has just announced they're offering asylum to the Kethmari. So have the Free Worlds Coalition and the Independent Systems League." Jake smiled. The truth was working. Better than any weapon. But Thelvos wasn't giving up. "Captain Morrison, You still have time to avoid disaster. Withdraw now, and we will consider this a misunderstanding. Continue to protect these criminals, and we will be forced to take action. What kind of action? Paul asked. The kind that will end badly for everyone, Felvos said coldly. The communication ended, leaving the bridge in tense silence. Captain, Amy said quietly, I'm detecting weapons charging on the council ships. I think they're preparing to attack. Jake felt his heart racing. This was it, the moment when everything would be decided. All ships, prepare for possible combat. But do not fire unless fired upon. The minutes stretched like hours. On the screens, they could see the council ships moving into attack formation. The human fleet responded by tightening their protective formation around the Kethmari ship Dot. Then something unexpected happened. One of the council ships broke formation and moved away from the fleet. That's the Centauri vessel Star of Peace, Paul reported. They're withdrawing from the council fleet. As they watched, 2 more council ships broke away and moved to neutral positions. Amy was monitoring the communications. Captain, the crews of those ships are refusing to fire on refugees. Some of them are calling this an illegal order. On the main screen, they could see Ambassador Thelvos' flagship moving forward, apparently preparing to attack alone. But then, even more ships began breaking away from his fleet. Sir, Amy said with excitement in her voice, only 4 council ships are still following Thelvos. The rest have withdrawn or are actively refusing to participate. Dr. Carter was watching her medical sensors. I'm detecting massive stress readings from the council flagship. I think Thelvos is having some kind of breakdown. A new communication came in, but this time it wasn't from Thelvos. A different alien appeared on the screen, one with silver skin and large, gentle eyes. This is Commander Yel-10 of the Council vessel Harmony's Light, Captain Morrison. I want you to know that many of us in the Council fleet never supported this action. The evidence you provided has opened our eyes to terrible truths. Thank you, Commander, Jake replied. We are withdrawing from this confrontation. Ambassador Thelvos no longer speaks for the majority of Council forces. As if to prove the point, 3 more ships moved away from Thelvos' position, leaving him with only 2 vessels still under his command. The ambassador's voice came over the communications, but now it sounded desperate and angry. 6 months had passed since the confrontation that changed everything. Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of the new space station, orbiting the planet Haven, watching ships come and go in the busy traffic lanes below. Human vessels worked alongside Kethmari ships, and representatives from dozens of species moved freely through the station's corridors. Captain, you're needed in the meeting room, Amy Rodriguez said as she approached. She wore the uniform of the Interspecies Communication Corps now, a new organization that had formed after the old Galactic Council collapsed. Still getting used to being called director instead of captain, Jake said with a smile. How are the negotiations going? Very well. The Andromedan Alliance has officially agreed to join the new Galactic Federation. That makes 37 species now. They walked through the station's main corridor together. The walls were decorated with art from many different worlds, including beautiful carvings made by Kethmari artists. Children from several species played together in the recreational areas, their laughter echoing through the halls. It's hard to believe how much has changed, Amy said. Remember when we thought the galaxy was going to go to war over the Kethmari? Jake nodded. Instead, it went to peace. The truth really did set everyone free. They entered the main conference room where representatives from dozens of species were gathered around a large circular table. At the head of the table sat Dr. Lisa Carter, who now served as the Federation's Director of Interspecies Relations. Beside her was Vex Tai, representing the Kethmari people in their new role as full galactic citizens. "Ah, Jake," Dr. Carter said as he entered. "Perfect timing. We were just discussing the proposal for the new colony ship." Jake took his seat at the table. The colony ship project was something special. The first vessel designed and built jointly by humans and Kethmari, intended to carry families from both species to establish a new world together. "How are the preparations going?" he asked. Zara Nil, who now headed the Joint Technology Development Program, stood up to give her report. "The ship is ahead of schedule. Human engineering combined with Kethmari construction techniques has produced something remarkable. The vessel will be able to carry 5,000 families safely to the Kepler 438 system." "That's excellent news," said Commander Yelton, the former council officer who now represented the reformed Centauri Union. "My government is very interested in supporting this colony project." An alien with blue skin and 4 arms raised his hand. "The Vegan Republic also wishes to contribute. We have agricultural specialists who could help the colony become self-sufficient quickly." Jake smiled as he listened to the discussion. After the collapse of the old Galactic Council, new alliances had formed based on cooperation rather than control. The corrupt officials who had hidden the truth about the Kethmari had been removed from power, and their governments had been reformed or replaced entirely. "There is another matter we need to discuss," Vextai said in his deep voice. "We have received word from our homeworld." The room grew quiet. Everyone knew that the Kethmari homeworld had undergone its own revolution after the truth about the child trafficking had been revealed. "What news?" Dr. Carter asked. "The new government has formally apologized for the crimes of the previous regime. They have invited all Kethmari exiles to return home if they wish." "That's wonderful," Amy exclaimed. "Will your people accept the invitation?" Vextai considered the question carefully. "Some will return, yes. Many of our people have family on the homeworld that they have not seen for 50 years. But others have decided to stay here or to join the colony ship project. What about you?" Jake asked. The tall alien leader smiled, an expression that had become much more common over the past months. "I will stay here. My home now is with the friends who stood by us when the rest of the galaxy had turned away." A young human woman entered the room and whispered something to Dr. Carter. She nodded and stood up. "Everyone, I have just received some very good news. The planet Haven has been officially certified as habitable for 17 different species. The terraforming project has been a complete success." This was met with applause around the table. Haven had been a dead world 6 months ago, but joint terraforming efforts by multiple species had transformed it into a beautiful new home. "My family will be among the first to settle there," said a representative from the Tau Ceti system. "My children are very excited to grow up in a world where many species live together." Jake looked around the room at the faces of beings from across the galaxy. Humans, Kethmari, Centauri, vegans, Andromedans, and dozens of others, all working together toward common goals. It was everything he had hoped for when he first decided to help the dying Kethmari ship. "Before we adjourn," Dr. Carter said, "I want to share something with all of you. We received a message from Earth today. The United Nations has approved a new mission to explore the far edge of our galaxy. They want to look for other species that might need help, other refugees, that the old council might have ignored or exiled. Will you be leading this mission?" Yelton asked. Jake thought about it. Part of him wanted to return to exploring space and helping those who needed it. But he also loved his work here, building the new Federation and watching the friendship between humans and Kethmari grow stronger. "I think I'll stay here for now," he said. "There's still a lot of work to do building this new galaxy we've all created together." Vextai placed his large hand on Jake's shoulder. Director Morrison, I think I speak for all Kethmari when I say that we are grateful every day for the choice you made 6 months ago. You could have followed orders and left us to die. Instead, you chose to help strangers, and that choice saved not just my people, but the entire galaxy. We all made that choice together, Jake replied. Humans, Kethmari, and everyone else who stood up for what was right. As the meeting broke up and the representatives returned to their various duties, Jake walked back to the observation deck. Through the large windows, he could see the planet Haven turning slowly below them, its new green continents visible through white clouds. Amy joined him at the window. Remember when you asked me if we should help the Kethmari? You said it was the right thing to do. I remember. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we had made a different choice? If we had followed orders and left them to die? Jake considered this. I think the galaxy would be a much darker place. The Council would still be in power, the trafficking would still be happening, and the Kethmari would be extinct. And humanity? We would have gained acceptance into galactic society. But we would have lost something much more important, our souls. They stood in comfortable silence for a while, watching the ships move through space around them. Human vessels carrying supplies to new colonies. Kethmari ships returning from their homeworld with news and gifts. Vessels from dozens of other species, all working together to build something better than what had come before. You know what I think is the best part of all this? Amy said. What's that? The children. Human and Kethmari kids playing together. On the station. Families from different species becoming neighbors on Haven. A whole generation growing up thinking that cooperation and friendship between species is normal. Jake smiled. She was right. The children who were growing up now would never know a galaxy where species were enemies by default, where refugees were abandoned to die in space, where corruption and fear ruled over justice and compassion. A chime sounded, and Jake's communication device activated. The face of Admiral Sandra Price appeared on the small screen. Director Morrison, I have news from the Colony Ship Project. The New Horizon is ready for its maiden voyage. Zaranel says the joint human-Kethmari crew is eager to begin their journey to the New World. That's excellent news, Admiral. When do they launch? Tomorrow morning with full ceremonies. Representatives from 43 species will be attending to see them off. Jake felt a surge of pride. The New Horizon represented everything they had worked for. Different species working together, sharing knowledge and dreams, reaching for a future built on cooperation rather than conflict. We'll be there, he promised Dot as the communication ended. Jake looked out at the stars once more. Somewhere out there, perhaps, were other species that needed help. Other refugees, other outcasts, other people who had been forgotten by those in Power Dot, but now they had something they didn't have 6 months ago. A galaxy that cared about doing the right thing, even when it was difficult. A galaxy that had learned to choose compassion over convenience, truth over comfort, and hope over fear. The stars had once seemed cold and distant to the Kethmari, shunning them and casting them out into the darkness. But humanity had shown that even in the vast emptiness of space, there was room for kindness, friendship, and second chances. And sometimes, when you reached out a helping hand to someone who needed it, you didn't just save them, you saved yourself. And everyone else too. The new galaxy they had built together was proof that the future could be better than the past if people were willing to work for it. And as Jake watched the ships moving peacefully through space around Haven, he knew that future was in good hands. Tomorrow, the New Horizon would carry families from 2 worlds toward a new home among the stars. And some you